Dua. Hotel. We ask for permission from our ancestors to speak today.
Ashe.
We must invoke your consent to even open our minds. We are cries from the womb. We come to you with the divine feminine cosmology. Yeah, Mother Earth, Mother Nature.
The queen bee, the great cosmic mother, as above, so below.
Come on.
We understand and relate to the black woman.
My eye.
For she is the key to our survival.
Come on.
Don't y'all get it? I guess not.
That feminine energy, the first ancient cosmology of the world before it was corrupted. That divine, feminine, primordial concept of the womb.
Come on.
Dua, creator, divine force, supreme energy, and great power. Lead us through this journey called life. Looking forward to the Duat.
Ancestors, be with us at this moment.
Sekhmet.
Guide and protect us, for we are your offspring. We will never forget your sacrifices
Natural.
and continue influencing
Divine principles.
and energy in our lives.
Hotel.
Ashe.
The primeval waters of noon.
Hotel, Uncle Jasineb, welcome to another live broadcast of Adults Only. I am your host, Chazz, along with my I'm Jahi. I'm so messed up now. I'm just saying anything at the outset. I am your host, Jahi, along with Chazz. And tonight we're going to continue our subject matter that we've been talking about for the last, I guess, week or so. So how you doing, first of all, Chazz?
I'm doing all right. Thanks, Jackson. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm just trying to get over this cold, so my mind is still kind of foggy, but we have to do this in spite of.
Right.
You know, we have a serious problem, Chazz, and it's
Okay.
far beyond our tear ducts. We have had this ongoing pandemic that's been beyond the realm of AIDS or COVID, and it's ongoing.
Mhm.
And it's called child abuse.
Mm.
It's also called child neglect. We like to focus on the child abuse, but we
Right.
don't like to talk about the child neglect.
Right.
But both are wrong. So we let people get away with murder. And so we're so blinded that we don't think outside the box when it comes to the protection of our beautiful little children.
Mm.
But
Mm.
tonight, on Adults Only, we will take our heads out of the proverbial sand and we will challenge us all concerning we better beware and we better watch who we allow to watch our children. So we're not going to dig up any old wounds of people who have been abused when they were kids, but we're talking about things as it relates to what's going on today. And so having said that, Chazz, I know you have maybe an introduction. We want to get our children out of harm's way. So that's why we're having this broadcast. Why is this important to you?
Because our youth, they're growing up at a quick rate. And we don't want them to be suffering mentally, physically. There's all kind of aspects where they can suffer. And we just want to make sure that our youth, we teach them the right way, because when you teach them young, that way they can have a better mindset about life so they don't get abused throughout life.
Okay, then having said that, let's stop flying and let's come down to earth and let's begin the process of defining terms, because many times we put our own definition on words, and a lot of times our definitions aren't the definitions that we need to deal with. So let's start off by letting you define what actually is child abuse when we say child abuse.
Basically, when someone causes harm or distress to our children,
Wow.
sometimes it's as whooping up a kid with a belt for 20 minutes, getting a switch, excessively whooping them for 30 minutes. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do agree with discipline a child, but when you have a kid just crying and screaming and you've been going on and on because you had a stressful day at work, that's abuse. Brother, there's so many different aspects of abuse that we got to touch on. So I'm going to just leave that one right there.
Okay, and see, what we need to also look at the end of the day, when we cause harm or distress to our children, that is abuse, you see. It may not be with a belt. It may not be with something physical, but we cause all kind of abuse to our children. Many of us cause emotional abuse,
Right.
And so this is why we're entitled this broadcast, You Better Watch Who You Allow to Watch Your Children. And that's why we talk about the abuse and the neglect, because many of us are just blinded. We allow anyone to watch our children and we don't see the damage that's being done. What is this note talking about here?
There are many types of abuses that we put on our children. I had one underlined. It's called, especially in our schools, I will call it supervisory neglect. Where, for example, not caring who watches our child, as long as someone's watching them. Sometimes the teachers aren't always to be trusted, and we have to be careful too, because sometimes our kid may come home from school and say, you know, my teacher has been poking me, or my teacher has been doing this and that. Sometimes the kid is right, and we need to look farther into that, not going up to the school to make a scene, but calling, making a conference to see what's going on, because we don't want this problem to linger.
That's right. So let's get into the different types of abuses, and then we'll get into the different types of neglects. So if you're watching this broadcast, we appreciate you tuning in to Adults Only. Again, I am Jahi, and that's Chazz, and we're going to continue to talk about the many types of abuses, because that's what's really happening in many of our children's lives. And as adults, we should be the protectors. And this is why we talk the way we talk. But the first kind of abuse, which I definitely don't agree with anyone doing this, but Chazz, what is this kind of abuse called?
Physical abuse. This involves deliberate acts of force against children, resulting in injury, trauma, or another form of harm. I'm going to let you go ahead and touch that up.
Why would you take something and punish your child with, as far as not so much a spanking? We're not talking about that. We're talking about hurting them physically, where you're busting up parts of their body, or where you're, ripping their skin off. This is a disgrace, ladies and gentlemen. And I think we have to slow the train down tonight. And we must talk about how we allow this abuse when we put our children not just in the hands of others, but many of us as parents, as relatives, we hurt our children, we physically harm them, and we should not deliberately do anything to our children that's going to result in injury, that's going to have them have to go to the hospital, have to go to the doctor, or causing trauma that's going to continue to bother them psychologically, or any other type of harm, Chazz. So physical abuse is a disgrace, especially if you're a grown man or you're a grown woman and you putting your hands on these children like these children are grown. What do you say about that?
I was going to say, brother, real quick, some of us, we grown up, we had a parents, not everybody. Someone, Rowena Royce says, Lord have mercy. Yes. Here's the thing. I have a problem with the parents mentally who sit back and say, you know what? Because I was brought up this way. My mom and daddy did me like this, so I'm going to do you that way. We got to change the way we think. And just because our parents, not all, just some, have abused us, that doesn't mean we need to do that to our kids. Especially, it's gotten to a point, brother, where I've heard some parents say, when you go to school tomorrow, you better not let that jacket down. You better not let them see them abuse. So,
why not, Chazz? Why they don't want it down?
Because the teachers or principal will suspect that there's abuse at home. So the parent has some kind of conscious, they know what they're doing, but because of the mindset, they think it's the right thing to do, brother. It's terrible.
Yeah, and you need help if you are an adult and you can't keep your hands off of these children. We're going to talk about how we put our mouths on them, how we curse them out. That's another form of abuse. Because we're looking at physical abuse, most of us that's looking at this broadcast, that you have no business putting your hands and fist on a kid. Like I told you a few weeks ago when we were talking about how a man physically harmed a 3-year-old. And most of us take up for these rascals. But this is not a good thing, Chazz. And we've got to shed light on this, because a lot of us, we hide behind our cell phones and we don't want to bring attention to how we are hurting these children physically, hitting them with objects, man. I mean, actually knocking kids out. These things are going on as we speak, but we don't want to talk about this, you see.
Yes. And once again, brother, I was brought up on the aspect of kids. They were paranoid. If they got a phone call from home and the principal said, you know what, your son or daughter was misbehaving at school, as soon as the kid got home, they start crying. And the parent would say, I don't want to hear it. You go outside and get me that switch. Brother, do you know the kind of trauma that does? Even though the child may be wrong, but making them pick the biggest switch, and just punishing them for 20 minutes. I believe in punishing the kids for 20 or 30 minutes and getting these big switches, brother. That's too much.
It really is. Now, this is the one I wanted to talk about because I want you to read this one slowly, and then I want to say a few things about it, and then I'll turn it back over to you because we often talk about physical abuse, and we should, because you can see the physical abuse. You can see the scars. You can see the whelps. You can see the bruises. You can see busted up nose and swollen eyes. But what about this one, Chazz?
Number 2, verbal abuse. This is a type of emotional abuse that involves using words to assault, dominate, ridicule, manipulate, or degrade children. I want to say something real quick. I'm going to pass it to you, brother. The verbal abuse that I really can't stand is when the baby mama or vice versa has a child and they say, you're going to be sorry just like your daddy, or you're going to be sorry just like your mother. You shouldn't put that kind of pressure on that child. That will psychologically damage them.
It sure will. And I have a problem with instead of us calling them by their names, we call them every name in the book because we are a sick people. Many of us are. And because we don't know how to communicate, everything is a 4-letter word. You little son of a this. You know, we call them out of their names. We call them names. You mother, you know what? We call them all kind of names. You little bastard. You know, we call them
brother.
Come on,
brother.
I'm gonna let this thing open tonight, Chazz, because I think that a lot of us have played games too long. We watch broadcasts on social media that's not going to stimulate us and help us. Many of us need help, Chazz, because if our children do something wrong, I can understand us correcting them. Right. But why is it that if they spill milk, that they have to be called a SOB? You know, that doesn't make sense. I'm talking about we call them names. We abuse them. We talk about them under their clothes. We say things about children. This verbal abuse is bad. And a lot of us don't want to talk about this.
And brother,
our children.
I just told you a few minutes ago, the way a lot of us were brought up, we saw from our grandparents, uncles, mothers, all that. They did us that way, so we feel like we need to teach our kids that. And I totally disagree. I'm gonna push back on that too, because if our parents or our relatives did us that way, we know it was wrong. So if we know it's wrong, why do we do it to other people? This is why when we talk about molestation in a few minutes, I really have a problem with that, because the people that are molesting our children, some of them have been molested as children, and I get that. But my problem with that is you knew it was wrong when it was done to you. Then damn it, why are you going to do it to someone else? And this is what I'm trying to get us to see. But see, Black people, African Americans, Europeans, Hispanics, Asians, Latinos, we don't want to talk about these kind of subjects, Chazz. We want to always look at these social media different takes, and we don't want to look at the seriousness of how our children are being damaged, man. Our children are being abused. Look at this. A queen says, just this morning here in San Antonio, Texas, a 1-year-old was scalded. Listen to this, man. Was scalded with hot water and injected with meth. See, CPS is in hot water. Wow.
See, this is what we're doing to our children. And this is why I'm trying to get us to see some of us need help. Yes. We may not need help because we physically abuse them. We need help because we verbally abuse them, because we don't know how to talk to our children. Someone says it's a sad thing. It's a lot of this going on. We know it's going on, Queen, and this is what we're trying to expose. Somebody said, oops, almost missed y'all. That's Brother Raymond. He's in. Here's another person that says this. This is why I keep my own grandsons. She says, when my daughter works, they come first. That's one of the most beautiful comments I've ever heard. Now, everybody can't do that, but she's sacrificing because she knows there are a lot of perverts out there. And there's a lot of people that badmouth our children. See, the child may not be physically harmed, but you have to watch who you allow to watch your children, because these children are getting cursed out, as you said. These children are being talked to like they're dogs. And most of us men and women will rather watch a football, basketball, baseball. Most of these women will rather watch somebody on a YouTube or some person that they're trying to be like, when we don't want to have this discussion, because verbal abuse, as this queen says, it's just as bad. as physical abuse because it lasts. See, when the scars leave, when the pain leave, and rather when the bruises leave on physical abuse, you can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Verbal abuse, the pain goes deep, Chazz.
Yes.
Real deep. The comments are flying in today. So I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all of our points. But Ray says respect gets respect. Adults must respect a child to get respect from a child. Yet these young adults want respect without respecting you to get it. Well, I think our subject, Chazz, is not about respect. Our subject, and I know what Ray is saying, because some of us adults, we don't respect our children. I get that. But what we're talking about is adults abusing our children, whether it's physical or whether it's verbal. Queen says, amen, myself and siblings never want outside the close the family to care for our children and grandchildren. Yes, Chazz. Let's continue to go. Let's continue to go because it's so much going on. Here's the one I know you're going to tear up right here.
Sexual abuse. Any sexual act that is forced upon a child, a minor, molestation, pedophilia is that what we call it today. And brother, this is no secret. If you don't have access to the internet, shame on you. But we all know what's going on with our children, where they're saying every year around 3,000 or 4,000 kids are coming up missing. These kids are actually, and this is an actual thing going on called organ harvesting, where these sick old men and sick old women, or young men and young women, they take these children and they kill them and they carve out their organs from the inside, brother. Not only that, they tie and chain them up. They sexually abuse them because they have a machine that drains the blood out of them.
Come on, Chazz.
And it's called adrenochrome, brother. This is all everywhere. Adrenochrome is the number one hot thing that's on the market, and a lot of people use it because they say it makes you look younger.
Raymond says, just because it happened to you, don't excuse them. You are a scum. He's right. You're not only a scum, you need help. You are sick. And you should be ashamed of yourself, but you're not, because men like me and you and other men and women should be protecting these kids. We should be talking to these kids, but unfortunately, we don't do that. Another queen says, as a child, they're innocent, and a lot of them, they need more guidance. They do. They don't need to be whipped. They don't need to be beaten. They don't need to be sexually abused, you see. And this is why we must have this discussion. Respect isn't the problem, a queen says, when it comes to a child. Right. It's not about respect. It's about not abusing them, you see.
Right.
Because every child should get respect, even if that child talks crazy to a person, because a child is a child. There is time for discipline. But what we're talking about tonight, Chazz, all of you who are watching this, I hope you stay with us. We are talking about child abuse and child neglect. So please, if your comments can't stay on subject, maybe you need, we're going to have to just pass them up, because I don't want to get off the subject, Chazz, because there's so much going on today. And we're talking about how people are sexually abusing our children. And see, you're so weak as a man or a woman, you can't get no one your age. So you try and tell a little child, because their minds are malleable. And so you play games with a child, but you won't get nobody your own age, because as Raymond said, you are scum. And if you need help, you need to get help. And what about this? What about this kind of abuse, Chazz?
Emotional abuse, a pattern or behavior in which the perpetrator insults, humiliates, and generally insults fear in child in order to control them. I was going to ask you real quick to back up real quick, brother. That's another one thing that we need to teach our kids when they're out at recess or in the parks, telling them, do not go, if a stranger offers you candy, popcorn candy, do not go with them, because kids are so gullible. They'll see a toy, they'll see candy, and they'll go. And here you go, like you said, I have a serious problem with people who are twice that child's age. And like you said, they play on their emotions to sexually harm them or even abuse them. It's sickening.
And this is what it is. When it boils down to it, a person who's engaged in that, this person has a serious problem, you see. And instead of us dealing with them, we let them off the hook because we don't want to confront them. Many of us know this is going on in our families, Chazz.
Ooh, come on now. Come on.
We know it's going on. Some of our uncles, our aunts, some of our grandfathers, some of our grandmothers, some of our nieces, some of our nephews, some of our cousins, you see, some of our sisters, some of our brothers. And be careful, but I'm gonna say this:
Okay.
some of our fathers,
Oh,
some of our mothers. Yes, yes, it is.
oh, come on, brother. You got me finna jump out this chair.
We have some sick individuals now, Chazz, and a lot of them are emotionally abusing these children. And this is the problem I have with us as a society. We don't want to sit down and listen to this kind of talk. We don't want to chime in and say the things that we can do to help our children. We rather sit around and listen to somebody sing a song or go to a concert or go to a play or go to a movie, and all that has its proper time. But we have emotionally abuse these kids, and when these kids get older, we're going to see that they're acting out what happened to them, and it happened right under our noses.
Yes. Humiliation is another thing too. To me, when you humiliate a kid, even though they can't put it into words, bro, but when you humiliate a kid, especially in front of their peers or against other family members, to me, I think you're a weak individual, because to me as a parent, if that kid does wrong, take them into your home. Quit posting, because you can humiliate a kid on social media. And you've seen this a lot, brother. A kid acts up in school, a parent gets word of it, they take their cell phone and they record the kid humiliating them on social media. And now that kid has to live with that. And to me, it should be dealt with in-house. Quit putting everything on social media. Quit telling your family members everything. Because listen, even though they're kids, when they get around, like they just had on so-called Thanksgiving, and they hear, you know, your auntie told me what you did. That's humiliation. That needs to stay in-house.
Look at this one, Chazz. The babysitter, she was a teenager and used to molest me as a baby. I never had a childhood innocence, yet I have never molested or raped anyone in my whole life. That right there is being very candid and being very transparent. And that's, again, what I like about this show. A person who can put their business out in love because of the subject matter to say, even though it happened to me, I know that it's wrong. What about this one, Chazz? Because I definitely want to take some shots at this one.
Institutional abuse. To neglect to provide proper care for children within their institutional setting. And I think I spoke about that earlier, brother. Supervisory neglect is basically even in schools. This is a pattern where say for example, that the school is no good. That the principals and some of the teachers there aren't any good. And instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to adjust and take that kid to another school, you throw them in there anyway because you really don't want to be bothered with it.
Yeah, and like Raymond said, he says he made sure that his 6 sisters and his 3 daughters, he looked out for them. See, he made sure that it didn't happen to them, meaning that he had to ask them questions, you see. He had to probe, whereas a lot of us, we don't like to probe, and that's what we should be doing because a lot of these kids are going through so much. And like you said, this whole idea of institutional abuse, that's something that we need to look at, because when you really look at it, Chazz, we send our kids to school. They're being abused because they're not being taught. See, we're not talking about the sexual abuse now. We're not talking about the physical abuse now. We're talking about institutional abuse, where you're not being taught who you are as a kid, where you're not being taught your culture, where you're not being taught your history, where you're not being taught your tradition. See, that's abuse, Chazz. And we let these kids go every year to these schools and these other institutions. We let them go to these dance clubs. We let them go to all these different organizations. And these institutions are abusing them, but because we want our kids to be something, you see. We often forget that these institutions are taking what's in their hearts and in their minds, taking it right out. And that's why we have to look at that, Chazz. And that's sad. You think about this, these places that we pay money to, we have our kids go to these wrestling events and all these places that we try to get them to be better children and all that. And these people are abusing them. You see, they're not talking to them the way they should. These people are really having some issues. Now, here's something I want you to read, and we're going to shift gears on this one.
Our children suffer greatly from neglect too. And they do.
Now you're talking. Go ahead, Chazz. Please talk about that.
As far as our children suffer from neglect, like I said, brother, we touched on a lot of them. There's so many different aspects of neglect, but for some reason I have to keep harping on this because this gets swept under the rug. I have a soft spot for kids who have been neglected at a young age. I'm talking about physically, who've been just whipped, and they have to hold this in. And let me ask you this, brother.
Sure.
What do you say to the child who's been neglected like that, whooped and whooped and whooped for years, and then as they grow older, they start to have what you call beef or animosity towards that parent?
I say the child, as they grow up, they need help. They need help because they're just repeating what happened to them. And sometimes they think this is life, but it's not life. So they need help at an early age. Many of us didn't get help. And this is why a lot of us are messed up mentally and psychologically. But see, we don't like to talk about this portion of our broadcast. We like to talk about abuse, Chazz, because you can see abuse.
Right.
This neglect, many times you can't see neglect.
Mm-hmm.
And our children are suffering from neglect, like the dad who has a child and the child's mother and the child's father doesn't stay together, but
Right.
the dad never comes into that child's life. Oh, let's
Right.
talk about it. Or
Right.
the mother who gives her child away to her relative and she never comes back and deals with her children in love. You see, that's neglect, but we don't
Right.
want to talk about neglect.
Or
see.
what about
Go ahead.
I had wrote this one down. I forgot to say this, brother. Environmental neglect. That's basically when a child lives in an unsafe neighborhood or when he or she is exposed to hazards such as asbestos, mold. Brother, when you have mold inside of a house or apartment and a kid or an adult inhales that for years and years and years, it messes up the immune system. It messes up the brain. And a lot of us may look at it, well, I don't care about that mold. It ain't gonna hurt them. You're
neglect.
messing that kid up.
Yeah, that's neglect. That's what it is. It's neglect. And see, like this says on the screen, child neglect is, listen, the ongoing failure to meet a child's basic needs. Our children have needs that must be met, but a lot of us don't look out for our children. We have lost everything that we have for the most part because we don't want to listen. We don't want to listen to the truth about how our children are not just being abused, but our children are being neglected. And a lot of the neglect is coming by people like us because of what we don't do for the children, you see. And that's why it's very important that we have this kind of discussion so that we know that child abuse is wrong and child neglect is wrong. But the average person don't want to talk about neglect. We want to talk about abuse, you see. And this is why it's difficult. So look at this. Adults only. There are many types of neglects, but Chazz and I want to talk about 5 types of neglect when it comes to children. Please don't leave this broadcast. Stick around. It's only for an hour. We've already gone at it for 20-something minutes. You can at least stick around for an hour because your grandchildren, your children, your nieces, my nephews, your sisters, your brothers, your cousins could be in this situation. So this is a teaching broadcast. This is a broadcast that's trying to enlighten us because of the sickness that we know is going on in our own families and everywhere we go. But Chazz, it says there are 5 different types of neglect that we want to talk about. Now, here's one.
A physical neglect. A child's basic needs such as food, clothing, shelter are not met or aren't properly supervised or kept safe.
Chazz,
especially food.
You mean they're not feeding their kids? You mean they're not feeding their kids, Chazz?
Brother, I have friends that I grew up to school, and this is what these kids would tell me. They said the only reason that they like going to school was because they got free lunches or they got free breakfast.
Oh, wow.
Brother, and in fact, I'm going to say this brother's name. I think he's in another state. His name is Jimmy. And brother, he would come to school, and I felt sorry for him when he would eat because he would eat so fast because he had eaten. And I would ask him, what's going on at home? He was saying that his parents just refused to feed him. I think, brother, this is what's going on too. If the parent has had that child out of wedlock and the baby daddy or the baby mama are beefing, they hold that against the child. And they say, and this is what they say, brother. I've heard them say that. Because I had a kid with your no good daddy, I'm going to take it out on you. I'm going to take it out on you.
Chazz,
I hate that. I really despise that.
I hate it with a passion too. When you have a child and you are not providing the basic needs, like we said, such as food, you are up to no good. And clothing. You don't even provide your children with the proper clothes. In some states, it gets cold, Chazz.
Right.
In some states, it gets colder than other states.
Right.
Some of our children are going to school or going outdoors with a sweater on, and it's 10 degrees below zero. So this is
Wow.
called neglect, Chaz,
Wow.
or the place they live in. This is called neglect. And none of us want to talk about it because we know that it's going on. And this is why it is as bad as it is, because a lot of us don't want to talk about this, Chaz. We don't want to
Yes.
talk about this.
Yes, it's sad. And even with the last comment, brother, it said something about shelter,
Mhm.
especially when you know as an adult, you know you should be having a roof over these kids' heads. And some of us wing it. We say, well, I'm not going to pay this rent this month. We're just going to see what happens just to make sure I pay other things. And you put that kid at risk because I think, brother, too, a lot of kids, they're emotionally dealing with a lot where they're
Mhm.
jumping from house to house. They're jumping from apartment to
Yeah.
apartment, family member to family member. Now, don't get me wrong. Times do get hard. People do fall on hard times. I get that. But when there's a pattern for 7, 8, 9 years, and this kid then live with every relative in the family, that's not good.
Wow. And Chaz, sometimes we have to say this, and I don't think people want to hear it. But sometimes we have children and we may need a year to get ourselves together, especially if we having some issues. But
Yes.
Chaz, you can't throw your kids on me. You
Yes.
can't throw your kids on granddaddy and grandmama. You can't do that. Now, if you're having some problems and you're sick, I understand that, Chaz. But see, we don't like to call these people out and let them know that's called neglect. You see,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
neglect. You
Yes.
mentioned this too, educational neglect. A parent doesn't ensure that their child is given a proper education. Now, this is where I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench in this whole broadcast. Here it is.
Okay.
The monkey wrench is right here. We often talk about how the school miseducates our children, and that is a form of neglect. Well, watch
Right.
this, Chaz. What about at home? Aren't you supposed to be? No, no, no. Aren't you supposed to be teaching your child?
Yes. Yes.
Am I supposed to be teaching my child? Why are
Yes.
you turning your children over to a system? And now you griping about a system that you know is not going to teach them. And you won't part your lips to teach your children about the rules of life, Chaz, because life is more important than anything. This is a form of neglect. You can give them tablets. You can give them cell phones. You can give them cartoons. You can give them clothes. You can give them everything they need, but you will not give them a proper education at home. And a lot of us don't want to talk about it because a lot of us are as guilty as sin because we have been so miseducated. We don't think that education should be at home, but that's the first place where education should be.
I want to touch on a few things real quick, brother. When I was growing up in school, and I appreciate some of the things that was happening to me, when I had issues with math or science or certain things, parenting is when they say, I may not be equipped with science. I may
Mhm.
not be smart in math, but
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
we're going to schedule you a tutor. You're going to
Okay.
meet up every Wednesday, every Thursday. Brother, that's emotional. That fits that child. That child needs that because I wasn't the brightest in science. I think I had a tutor, but they helped me. And then let me ask you this too, brother.
Okay.
Don't you think when the kid has homework, instead of just letting the kid come home, you know that kid isn't going to do that homework.
Right.
Get your butt, sit at that table, open up that folder, and teach that kid. They may go wrong. It may
Chad,
take.
a lot of us don't even know ourselves, and we're not interested. Like you're saying, this shows a sacrifice and a willingness, and we can learn together. But a lot of us parents, we don't have time, Chaz, because we got to get a blunt. No,
Oh,
no, no,
come
Chaz,
on.
no. This is why we're neglecting our
Say
kids at
that one
home.
more time.
We're not educating our children at home because we're too busy trying to chase a blunt. We're too busy trying to drink a beer. We're too busy trying
Oh,
to smoke a dub. We're too busy trying to drink some wine. We're too busy trying to watch TV. We're too busy trying to chase the dope man. We're too busy trying to chase the dope woman. We're too busy trying to get in between the legs of a woman that we've been trying to get in for the
come
longest.
on
We're
now.
too busy trying to get between the legs of a man that we loved and he doesn't care. See, this is the mindset, but a lot of us don't want this kind of teaching, Chaz. So we
Yeah.
rather watch broadcasts that's going to tell us what we want to hear, make us feel good,
Wow.
and keep us ignorant. But you know that that's educational neglect because you know from life yourself, you should be able to impart to your children some of the pit holes that they should look out for because you've already done that. And that's
Yeah.
a shame. And that is a disgrace.
It really is, brother. And you just went on that quick rant. I didn't expect you to take it there, but brother, you really took it there. You really didn't hold back on that one, brother.
Well,
Ray.
we have to because our kids are at stake, you see. Our kids are at stake. And we often say we love our kids, and I do believe we do love them. But we have a sick way of showing our love for our kids because we're neglecting them. We're abusing them, you see. And then someone says, and the educators from the classroom to the gymnasium are being arrested for some type of porn or sexual assault. And we act like this is not going on. And so, yes, we must talk about this intelligently, because these things we're talking about are going on. What about this one, Chazz?
Emotional neglect. A child doesn't get the nurture and stimulation they need. Especially,
go ahead, Chazz. No, please.
Okay, I was going to say, their parents, we think them getting stimulation is from social media or on TV. Take that away from them, teaching them the basic things in life as far as how to treat people. Hold the door open for your elders.
Okay,
to me, I tie that into emotional neglect, because when you don't teach them that and they grow older and they start displaying some terrible behaviors, then we try to look at, okay, well, where did we go wrong? Well, you didn't teach them that. That's where you went wrong.
That's good teaching. Chazz, emotional neglect is going on all over in our families and everywhere, because here's the deal. When you think about it, a child needs love.
Yes.
A child needs care.
Yes.
To tell your child that you love them, there's not anything wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
To sit down with your child and watch something educational is a beautiful thing. To tell your child when they fall in life, it's going to be okay.
Right.
See, this is the kind of teaching that people don't want to hear, Chazz. I'm telling you now, we're in the belly of the beast. And we don't want to be honest about it. See, a child needs stimulation. So what? They come home and their report card is terrible. We don't whip them or beat them or make them suffer because they didn't get all A's. We say to them, you did the best you could. Let's work on some things. I still love you. You still are smart. You still are a genius. See, but we take that thing that they give us, and if it's all F's or D's, we talk about them like a dog. We call everybody in the family, and we whip them. We take things from them when we don't realize that everybody learns at a different capacity. Yes. And we have to learn that emotional neglect is where we are not even telling our children or hugging them and letting them know that we care for them, and telling them if someone touches you in a certain area at a young age. See, they need to know this, Chazz, and I don't know why we're sitting around acting like we don't know this situation.
Yes, and like I told you earlier, brother, in the broadcast, where if the kid is at school and they don't understand, even if us adults, sometimes our minds get foggy and we may not understand science to the best. It's our job as the parent to schedule them. I do believe in tutors, even if it's for 20 or 30 minutes a day. Get them sharpened up in that area, because like you said, if you don't teach them, you see they keep getting F's. Why you keep getting angry when you see that they keep failing in science when you don't do nothing to help them? I mean, come on.
That's abuse. Raymond says, he says, I used to pop up in school unexpected just to check on my children. He said, and then, but check this out though. He did that, and that's fine. But when they come home, are we looking at what's in them books, what they're being taught? You see, This is what we're trying to teach. She says, we have to be our child's cheerleader. We do. We have to, because the world is going to throw rocks at them. Yes. The world is going to tell them that they're no good. The world is going to tell them that they're nothing. The world is going to tell them that they'll never be anything. But yet these types of broadcasts is where we learn and we grow together. He says, my daughters are all in college and they graduated. And he says, I still teach them because they respect him, man. They respect him because he has laid it down. Go ahead, Chazz.
I was just going to say real quick on the college comment that Brother Ray just said real quick. There's all kind of ways, and I'm not taking shots, because there's some kids who can't do college. They may not have the brain for it, and sometimes it's tough. But I think if you don't teach them about trades, that's neglect too. Everybody can't always be successful in college. Teach them about trades. That's another avenue if the kid is willing to learn. I don't see nothing wrong with a trade.
Chazz, this is a wonderful broadcast. And I really like this because we're talking about something that is really going on now. This ain't no smut. This ain't no garbage. This ain't no celebrity gossip. This is about the home, Chazz. Yeah. This is about what's happening right in our faces. This is why we want you to share this broadcast. Like this broadcast. Tell other people about this broadcast. They need to know about these different issues that we talk about. And so, Chazz, this is the one I want to read, and I'm going to let you have it, but I got to say this. Medical neglect. We don't ever talk about medical neglect because we're so small-minded. But medical neglect is a child isn't given proper health care. This includes dental, optometry, or any other recommendations. In other words, you're not taking your child to the dentist. Your child is eating candy all over.
Wow.
Your child's teeth are rotting. And you see
Mhm.
this, and I see this, and you won't do it. Your child has told you that they cannot see that well, but you refuse to take them to an optometrist. A child is sick and say, I don't feel good. I need to be checked out. And we still won't take them to the doctor, man. The child is hot. Temperature
Yes.
is beyond 100. And
Yes.
because we're too trifling, many of us, some of us, we're so trifling. We won't make sure that our kids' teeth are taken care of. Our children's hygiene is taken care of. Their
Yes.
optometry. See, these are the things we should be talking about. But see, the grandmamas and the granddaddies, the uncles and the aunts, the brothers and the sisters, we can care two hoots about this. And
Oh
you see
no, brother.
medical, yes, it is true.
No.
That's why you don't see many comments talking about medical neglect, because we're neglecting them and we don't want to be honest and say, you know what? I've neglected my kids. I've neglected my relatives. It's not just our kids, our family members. We see our nephews and nieces, and we know that they need things, and we won't even tell our sisters and brothers that child needs to go to the doctor. That
Yeah.
child has lost a lot of weight. That child
Yeah.
is too big. You see, we don't want to talk like that, and that's why I don't have a lot to do with a lot of people. It's because many of us, we don't want to have a serious discussion. We want to put our head in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Make people think we know everything. We
Mm-hmm.
want people to think that we know so much because we're Christians, we're Muslims, we're spiritual people, and I don't have a problem with what you believe.
Right.
My issue is, when will that be put to use, Chazz?
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem, that we have neglected our children from a medical standpoint.
Number E, total
Absenteeism.
stand away from children by either or both
Uh-oh.
parents.
What you gonna say on that, Chazz?
Stand away from, especially like I said, if you've had that kid out of wedlock and you really don't like that child, or even vice versa, you say, I refuse to have anything to do with this kid because, number one, I don't feel like I should be paying for their needs.
Come on,
Chazz.
Come on, Chazz.
I shouldn't have to pay for their shoes. That's terrible, brother. And this is going on. It happens every day.
Somebody says, I told you I enjoyed doing homework with them. Yes, he enjoyed that. That's beautiful. He enjoyed that. She says, but they pop up in the club on a regular. Yeah. They won't pop up at their children's school or in their children's lives, but they'll do other things.
And I was gonna say real quick, brother, like you said, when the parents refuse, or a parent refuses to keep in contact with that child, and then when they grow older, if that kid runs into a boatload of money, that parent will be the first to call that child up to ask them for a few bucks. And what do you think the child is going to say? The child is not going to want to do anything with it.
And see, here's a problem that I have with us as men. Some of us, we have relationships with women, and it doesn't work out or whatever. Then we have a child with that woman, so we go our separate ways. We meet another woman, we have a child with that woman. We neglect that first child. Wow. And so when the first mom, she's angry because I'm spending all my time with my other child. She's not angry because I'm spending time with him. She's angry because I'm spending all of my time with him. And instead of us looking at it like, that is my child too, I need to spend time with both of my kids. We stay with the one child the longest. And as you said, when we get older, we despise these people because we know that these people were not there for us. Yes. And nobody's going to tell it. The preacher ain't going to tell it. The imam ain't going to tell it. The spiritual guru ain't going to tell it like we're telling it, because they're weak, man. And these are the messages, these are the sermons, these are the lectures that these women and men and all of us need to hear, because you cannot have a child and totally be in absenteeism from that child's life. If you are no good, you are rotten, you need help, you are sick, and you need to check yourself into somewhere to help you to get yourself together, because apparently it's not working. You cannot have a child.
Or what about brother? What about when they ask? Well, I wouldn't say accident, but when they have these kids calculate and they say, you know what, I can't take care of this kid. And brother, this is neglect too. And I hate to go here.
Okay.
Some of us have made a bad decision, and I hate where I'm about to go.
Okay.
We have a kid, and we find out that we can't take care of it. You know what we do?
What?
We go get an abortion. And that breaks me. That breaks me to say that, brother. Listen. Who are you to say I don't feel like this child should live because I can't afford it? You don't know what that kid would have been when they grew up, and to sit back and call this place, and then listen, bro. How can you go to sleep at night? Now, how can you go to sleep at night knowing that you did that to that baby? You killed that baby.
Okay, Chad, you I've heard you in the past, and boy, you on one tonight. I don't know if you smoked. I don't know if you smoked some dope. I don't know if you had some drinking. But the point of the matter is, we want you to be in that child's life. Whatever you've done in the past, you may not be able to go back and redo anything, but you can learn from the past and continue to move on forward, so that people can know that just like all of us, we're all learning. We're all brothers and sisters, or we're learning. And someone says poor excuses as a parent. That's what we do. We're always giving excuses as opposed to being honest about, you better watch who you allow to watch your children.
Yes.
Why is this subject not hot, Chazz? Why is it not popping?
Well, it's not because, like you said, brother, this is touching on a lot of our loved ones and friends. We're stepping on their toes, and they look at it that we're trying to think that we're better. We're talking down, but these are topics that has to be discussed.
How are we talking? See, this is how I know ignorance is really bliss. How are we talking down to you when we're talking about ourselves?
That's how they see it, though, brother.
When we're talking, I know that's how they see it, but we're talking about us as a people. We're talking about all of us learning how to do better when it comes to abusing our children and neglecting our children. See, and this shows me that a lot of us are really sick psychologically. Because we don't want to look at this, but we'll watch a movie that shows somebody killing somebody or somebody being in a relationship. You know, we'll look at those kinds of movies, but we won't sit down and talk about the real stuff, because this is going on right now. You have kids and are struggling to take care of them, but you keep having them. That's neglect. See, we don't like to talk like this. See, we don't like to talk like this. These people are telling the truth. Somebody says, yes. Here's another one. Because the shoe fits. That's why they don't want to watch the broadcast, because the shoe fits. And that's beautiful. That's why they don't want to tune in. That's why our numbers aren't great the way they should be. This is a problem. And yet most of us, we know that what we're saying is true. This man says, put the children first. Let them have their innocence. There's nothing like having a child that had a childhood. You don't want to have a child who didn't have a childhood.
Right.
At the age of 7, 8, 9, or before, something happened to them, whether it's verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, where they think back when they were kids, and that thing haunts them, Chazz.
Yes.
It haunts them. And so this is why we have to put the children first. This is why we need shows like this and other shows to help talk about what's really going on. What about this one? Go ahead, Chazz.
I was just going to say real quick, brother, I think it's abuse too, to where when we come home from work as parents, I know we're tired, we had a long day, but to just give a kid a cell phone or a tablet and say, go on your room and stay on this iPhone and don't bother me. Bro, even though the kid is not getting hit with a belt, that's still abuse, because you're not showing them what life is about. You're not teaching them how to go outside and play, have recess as a kid. And I hate to say this, brother, but when I was growing up, we were more outside. All these kids nowadays, brother, they don't want anything but a tablet.
Yeah, and see, that's neglect, because that's all we give them, you see, because the tablet is the bottle now. The tablet is the babysitter. The tablet is the do-all. The tablet is the cure-all. And this is why it's like it is, Chazz. It really is. Now, life neglect, that's the ignoring of teaching children lessons about life.
Yeah,
that's a shame. That's a shame.
Yes,
we neglect them when we don't talk about life. We know how the prison system is. We know that it's going to try to incarcerate the African-American male. We know that the prison system is going to do that. We know that economically we don't have. So why can't we teach our children those things to look out for, Chazz?
We should, but we don't. Especially like as kids, most of the time, kids are going to do stupid things, go in the store and steal, go in the store and do things that they shouldn't do. But we need to teach them better things as far as, don't do that. And don't beat them with a belt, but just teach them. You don't do that. You go as far as with friends. You respect your friends as parents. You respect people. Teaching them life lessons will help them go a long way, brother. But like you said, we're not teaching them this because we feel like it's not important.
Well, check this out. Next week, we will be discussing the effects of all these abuses that we're talking about and the neglects, because many of them have on they have on many of our children. We're going to want to know, why is it that a child that's turning 10 begin to do certain things?
Yes.
Why is it that some of our children, we say they're bad, but we never realize that they're acting out
Yes.
something that happened to them?
Yes.
We want to get into, why are our children, many of them, not interested in anything? Because what was taken from them at a young age, Chazz, they have been stripped, they have been robbed, they have been raped, they have been pillaged, they have been plundered, and now this is all they have left. And we don't realize the way they are and why they're the way they are. And most of us want to have all the answers. Most of us think we know everything. But the bottom line is, next week, we're going to talk about, why are these children, some of them, why are they acting out, Chazz? Go ahead.
You know what, I've come to the conclusion. I really think all of this that we're talking about, all these different aspects, brother, all this leads to, and this word starts with a D for the kid, it leads to depression. We wonder why we have to take these kids to go sit and talk with someone. We wonder why they need medicine. Because all this throughout the years, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years old, all this bottled in. Brother, what do you expect? They're going to be depressed. And now, I'm not saying that you should just always ignore all the little things. But, brother, that all this leads to depression.
It does. And that's another thing that we got to talk about, because a lot of the depression that our children are faced with right now, they're faced with it because of what they went through when they were younger, and now they're young adults, and many of us are old adults, and many of us are senior citizens, and we never got the help that we needed.
Yeah.
And so we turned into something that we cannot stop. We are messed up inside because of all that has happened to us. And because we don't want to have these discussions, and because we rather watch sports or entertainment, because we rather watch celebrity gossip, we rather chase the dope man, we rather get high, we rather smoke dope, we rather drink beer, we rather, listen to music, we rather do all these things than to talk about these things, because this is what's going to help us. Because we got to know what to do, Chazz.
Yes.
When your nephew, your cousin comes to you and you see something's going on, you got to know what to do. You can't just say, that boy crazy. No, that boy is not crazy.
Yeah, and I don't see nothing to him. And I don't see nothing wrong with this, because I know this may start a lot of beef. Where we all go around our family members, we see sometimes, like you mentioned earlier, certain things to that kid aren't properly being taken care of. It's okay for us to intervene and say, you know what, Fred, I'm going to start doing this with you every Wednesday or Thursday. But to sit back and you see that kid needs help and you don't address it, I think you weak too as a family member to see that.
Wow.
I really believe that.
Well, here's something that we need to read. I was a single mom with my daughter, and I was so overprotective of her to this day. She calls it abuse. She's laughing face. I whipped her if she left my earshot or eye shot, because it made me nervous. Nothing but TLC and protection, you see. And I don't think people realize that that's the attitude that we should have as far as being protective, you see, because there's too much going on now.
Yes, everything
Letting
goes.
your child spend the night over the people's houses just because you want them to be out of your hair? This doesn't make sense.
It's open season, brother. Everything goes. Everything goes.
Ray says the prison pipeline has deprived them of defending themselves at school, while the parents has the legal rights like the children have. Chazz, this has been a great discussion today. Yeah. And it's been great because we're talking about our families. Mm-hmm. We're talking about our loved ones. Mm-hmm. We're talking about how our children have been abused and neglected. And we're talking about how many of us don't look at neglect. We want the abuse because you can see the abuse. And I'll repeat this until I leave this earth. Abuse is easily seen, especially physical abuse, because you can see the scars, you can see the whelps, you can see the damage that it's to do. But the other you can't see, Chazz, the neglect you cannot see.
Yes.
Because it's deep down in our hearts, because something happened to us. We've been called names all of our lives. We've been cussed out ever since we were little kids. We were called everything you could imagine. And now we've grown up And we're doing the same thing to our children.
Yeah.
And this is why we got to have these kinds of discussions.
Auntie Rose says, post giving out free drinks at the club, feedback on the broadcast, see how many you get then.
Yeah, she's right. You know why? She's right. Because she's on the same page we're on. If we were up here talking about the clubbing, we would get 300, because it shows you the mindset of a people who has been taken advantage of and who don't know how to think for themselves and who don't know how to get out of the box that we're in. Because many people don't want to have this discussion, but yet our own children are being affected, and we are some of the abusers, Chazz.
Oh yeah, and we don't want to admit it. We know in our hearts we are abusers, but we won't admit it. It says Ray says it touches a nerve when people claim they have molested. It touches a nerve when people claim they were molested. They are molesters. This is a cop-out. Absolutely.
Yeah, because here's the deal. Some of us need help. And I get that. And we're not saying that you shouldn't get help. But what I'm saying is, if you knew it was wrong when it was done to you, you know that it's wrong when you do it to somebody else. And I think that's basically what Raymond is saying. Because we got to look at abuse and neglect. We got to stop talking about news and fake media and all this other stuff. We got to start talking about our babies, man. And how we're allowing them to be abused in the educational system, teaching them garbage that they will never use to demean themselves. We got to start talking about neglect, how we leave them with people just to run down to the store to get a drink when you don't know what these people have done to your child in less than 5 minutes, man.
Right.
We got to start having this discussion. We got to start talking about people in our own family. See, we don't want to talk. We always think it's a person we don't know. But do you know that the majority of the people who have been abused and molested, they know the person that did it?
Wow.
They know the person that did it. Yeah, they know. Because you're not going to let a total stranger, most of us are not going to, we're not going to let a total stranger around our kids, and that's safe.
Right.
We'll let our relatives. Why? Because we know.
We're comfortable.
Yeah, we know these people. And these are the ones that's doing it. So if you haven't watched this broadcast, we ask you to go back and watch the one from last week. I will apologize in advance, even though I'm joking, because I'm not apologizing for anything I say, but I'm trying to be funny. Last week, Chazz and I, we were high as a kite, not literally high. Yeah. We was high because this subject matter was really fresh and new to us on this broadcast. Today, we've kind of come down a little bit. And next week, we're going to land this plane, and we're going to be talking about the effects. Because my child and your child was abused, this is why they're acting the way that they're acting. And you should be watching this at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. Sit down before it comes on so you can be ready, because you know we're going to help you, and we're going to give us all clues and tips. We're going to give us some tips of things we can do. We haven't given you the application. That's why I love this broadcast. We're going to give you next week application on certain little things you can do. Even here's something as simple as what I said, what I normally do. With the students I have, whenever we go somewhere, they have to walk in front of me. They have to walk in front of me, because walking in the back, somebody could snatch you in a grocery store, in a clothing store, and you will be gone in less than 3 seconds. You cannot leave my eyesight. You cannot. You must walk in front of me, so I can see everything that's going on. And if my students get behind me, they know they got it coming. They will just, they're going to run real fast, because they know that's a simple tip that we can all do. And Brother Raymond, I want to say this about Brother Raymond. Raymond always gives us information on people that have been abducted and people that have they have vanished. Some people have taken them. See, if you don't, just look at his feed. He'll show you, have you seen this person? See, he looks for that. But most of us don't care about that. Most of us don't care about that. Someone says a real strict, they stay in front of, that's good. That's very good. That's very good.
Yes. Says, and there something should be locked up to, family or not.
Oh yeah. You got to lock them up. You have to lock them up. Someone else says, my adult children act out because they were spoiled. Okay, we get that. That's a good way, you see. So Chazz,
Brother, I want to say real quick, I noticed whenever I do these shows with you, I'm always fired up at the beginning, but towards the end, it always feels like I ran 10 miles because we're exerting a lot of energy. But I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, we really do, because we care for our people. And to those who watch this broadcast, we definitely appreciate you. All we want you to do is tell someone else that has a heart, that have guts, that can sit down for an hour and can talk about the matters that we go through. And so we really want you to see this broadcast as some learning broadcast, so you can take principles like next week on some of the things. And if you think of some things this week of what we can do to stop this, and then just put it on the screen and we'll talk about it, because we engage with our audience here. It ain't just about me and Chazz being some kind of celebrity. It ain't about that. It's about y'all putting in y'all's point of view, because many of us know things, you know things that we don't know. So this is how we grow together. See, and this is why a lot of people don't like this broadcast, because you have nothing to say.
And how could you not have something to say?
How could you not? How could you not? So, Chazz, I'm gonna give you the last words, because it looks like we're into that time. And when I'll say to all of you, Shemotep, that means we want you to leave in peace. We really care for you, and we want you to know that we're always here for you. And if you have a subject matter that you want us to talk about, we'll talk about it. But we appreciate all of you for showing up. Share the broadcast, like the broadcast, tell other friends and family members about the broadcast. And if a person is a true male or true female that really want to know, we're going to let you know that we have to do something about our children. You have to do something about our children, because these are the people that's going to lead us into the future, but we don't want them damaged like many of us are. And we're just so confused and so messed up. So having said that, the last words you're going to hear will be from Chazz. I'll play his little theme music as we go out, and then he can take his time, and we're just going to let you go, ladies and gentlemen. So again, Shemim Hotep, we appreciate it. If you just joined in, go back and watch the broadcast from the beginning, and watch the one from last week as well. Chazz, take us away in any way you want to, and we'll be out of here.
I want to say that we have to take this topic seriously, especially about our loved ones, our kids. They're vulnerable. They have an innocent mind, and we don't want to corrupt them at a young age. Let them live in a peaceful way, and quit abusing them. Quit whipping them for everything. Quit leaving whelps and knots and blood running down their arms. Quit doing that. Teach them what love is, because if we don't, the police will instantly. I also want to say we have some new viewers on here. I appreciate that. Nikita, my Aunt Ro, a whole bunch of other people. I appreciate that. But last but not least, we must take care of our kids, because if we don't, they are going to be a statistic in the system. And don't want that to happen. We've already got enough of them being arrested at a young age for theft, petty crime. And once they get in this situation, it's going to be hard to get out of it, because we don't have the money to get them out of it.
Teach
so with that being said, I think that's all I'm going to leave with that. Take care, everybody, and I hope to see you guys back next week.
Dua Hotel, we ask for permission from our ancestors to speak today. We must invoke your consent to even open our mouths. We are cries from the womb. We come to you with the divine feminine cosmology. Yeah, Mother Earth, Mother Nature.
The Queen Bee, the great cosmic mother, as above, so below.
Come on.
We understand and relate to the black woman, for she is the key to our survival.
Come on.
Don't y'all get it? I guess not.
That feminine energy, the first ancient cosmology of the world before it was corrupted. That divine, feminine, primordial concept of the womb.
Come on.
Dua creator, divine force, supreme energy, and great power. Lead us on this journey called life. Looking forward to the Duat.
Ancestors, be with us at this moment.
Sekhmet.
Guide and protect us, for we are your offspring. We will never forget your sacrifices and continue influencing
Divine principles.
and energy in our lives.
Hotel. The primeval waters of noon. Dua. Hotel. We ask for permission from our